In a small village surrounded by green hills and blooming fields, life seemed to pass without any disturbances. The afternoon sun bathed the cobblestone streets and picturesque houses in a golden light that reflected the place's calm and serenity. It was in this idyllic setting that Catherine, a 12-year-old girl, and David, a 13-year-old boy, fell in love. Catherine and David shared a pure and profound love, one that promised to overcome any obstacle. Although they were young, their bond was unbreakable, and their hearts beat in unison with every encounter. On sunny afternoons, they met in a small clearing in the forest, away from prying eyes, where they promised always to be together and protect their love against all odds. One spring day, Catherine had news to share with David, news that could change their lives forever. With her heart pounding, she mustered the courage and said, "David, I am pregnant." The young boy, though initially surprised, soon let a smile of joy spread across his face. "We're going to have a baby," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with excitement and a mix of fear. Despite the happiness they felt, they knew their families, especially Catherine's, would never accept the situation. Her parents, conservative and strict, and David's father, Charles, a powerful and authoritarian man, would never allow two such immature youths to take care of a new life. They decided to keep the pregnancy a secret, living each day under a cloud of anxiety and fear. As the months passed, Catherine's growing belly began to betray the secret they had fought so hard to hide. Loose clothing was no longer enough, and inquisitive looks became more frequent. Charles, always vigilant, discovered the young couple's plan to flee. He could not accept that his son would be tied to a family he considered inferior. "David, you must leave that girl. I promise you a bright future if you do," he said with a coldness that chilled the heart. But David, loyal to his love, refused to yield. "I can't, Dad. I love Catherine, and this baby is our responsibility." David's words enraged Charles, who decided to increase surveillance on his son, doing everything possible to separate them. Despite Charles's pressure and control, David and Catherine continued to see each other in secret. They planned to flee together to a distant city where no one knew them. The night before their planned escape, Catherine packed her few belongings, her heart filled with a mix of hope and fear. They knew they had only one chance to escape and build a new life. The night was charged with an unsettling silence, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the leaves and the occasional hoot of a distant owl. Catherine moved carefully through her room, packing essentials into a small suitcase. Her hands trembled slightly, a mix of fear and anticipation pulsing in her chest. Every item she placed in the suitcase carried a piece of her past life, a life she was about to leave behind. David, with a racing heart, waited in the forest clearing, the same place where they had shared so many dreams and promises. The full moon illuminated his face, revealing the determination in his eyes. He knew this was their only chance to start anew, far from his father Charles's constant watch. When Catherine finally arrived, their eyes met in a silence laden with meaning. They didn't need words. Both knew what was at stake. David took Catherine's suitcase and held her hand, guiding her down the barely visible path under the moonlight. Each step took them further from home and the restrictions that had kept them prisoners. "We're going to make it, David," whispered Catherine, gripping his hand tightly. "Our love will give us the strength to overcome any obstacle." "I know," he replied firmly, though he also felt the weight of uncertainty inside. "Together, we can face anything." The path wound through the forest, the trees casting long shadows that swayed with the wind. Every crack of a branch, every unexpected sound made the young couple stop, their hearts racing. But they continued, driven by the hope of a better future. However, as dawn approached, a familiar sound broke the forest's tranquility. It was Charles's deep, authoritative voice calling for his son. "David, come home immediately." The command resonated with a harshness that cut through the air, and the young couple felt fear grip their hearts. Charles, accompanied by two intimidating men, emerged from the trees. His face showed a mix of fury and disappointment. "David, I won't let you ruin your life over a youthful whim," he said with a controlled but furious voice. David, pale but determined, stepped in front of Catherine. "Father, you can't stop us. I love Catherine, and we're going to have a child. You can't keep controlling our lives." Charles looked at him coldly. "We'll see about that. Now, come home." Without giving him a chance to reply, one of the men grabbed David by the arm, forcing him to step back. Catherine, tears in her eyes, watched helplessly as David was taken back to the village. She knew that if she tried to follow them, she would endanger not only her life but also the life of the baby she carried. With a broken heart, she continued her way through the forest, now alone and terrified. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, bathing the forest in a faint golden light. Catherine, with a heavy heart and a growing sense of despair, struggled down the leaf-covered path. Each step became more difficult as the pain in her belly intensified. She knew the time was near, but she was alone and scared, with no one to turn to. "My God, help me," Catherine murmured through clenched teeth, struggling to stay calm as a wave of pain swept through her body. The contractions were intense and increasingly frequent, forcing her to stop and lean against a tree to catch her breath. She felt her body was at its limit, but she knew she had to keep going. In the village, David was locked in his room, closely watched by his father, Charles. The young man couldn't stop thinking about Catherine, imagining her alone and in danger. His worry for her and their baby consumed him. He couldn't stay still while his love was in trouble. "Father, please, let me go," pleaded David, his voice filled with desperation. "Catherine needs me. She's about to give birth. We can't leave her alone." Charles, his face hardened, responded coldly. "That girl and that baby are her problems, not ours. I won't allow you to ruin your life over an impulsive decision." David's determination didn't waver in the face of his father's refusal. He waited for the opportune moment, and when Charles was distracted, he took the chance to escape through his bedroom window. He ran through the village and into the forest, driven by the hope of reaching Catherine in time. Meanwhile, in the heart of the forest, Catherine found herself in a clearing, exhausted and covered in sweat. The contractions were so intense that she could barely stand. With each wave of pain, she screamed for help, even though she knew no one was around to hear her. "David, please come," she whispered through tears, feeling her strength ebbing away. Fear gripped her, afraid she wouldn't be able to give birth alone. But the love for her unborn child gave her the strength to keep fighting. Finally, David reached the clearing, his heart pounding as he saw Catherine on the ground, writhing in pain. "Catherine, I'm here," he said, rushing to her and taking her hand. "I'm going to find help. Don't worry, everything will be fine." Catherine weakly nodded, clinging to David's hand as if it were her only anchor in the storm of pain. Knowing that time was crucial, David stood up and ran back to the village, looking for someone who could help them. Upon arrival, he found Richard, Catherine's father, who had been desperately searching for his daughter. "Richard, please, Catherine is in the forest. She's about to give birth and needs help," David exclaimed, his voice filled with urgency. Richard, though still angry about the situation, couldn't ignore his daughter's plight. "Let's go," he said briefly, taking control of the situation. Together, they ran back into the forest, guided by Catherine's faint cries. Richard and David hurried along the forest path, their hearts pounding in their chests. Catherine's cries grew clearer as they neared the clearing. Finally, when they arrived, the scene they found was heartbreaking. Catherine was on the ground, her face drenched in sweat and tears, holding her newborn with a mix of love and exhaustion. "Father, David, please help me," Catherine pleaded, her voice breaking with pain and relief at seeing her family there. Richard quickly approached his daughter, his hands trembling as he stroked her face. "We're here, daughter. Everything is going to be all right," he said, trying to remain calm. David knelt beside Catherine, looking at the baby with tears in his eyes. "This is our child, Catherine. We made it," he whispered, gently caressing the newborn's cheek. For a brief moment, everything seemed to be in place. The family was united, and the promise of a new beginning seemed within their grasp. However, the peace was fleeting. Charles appeared in the clearing, his face a mask of contained fury. "This cannot continue," Charles said harshly, his eyes fixed on the baby. "We must protect the honor of our family." Before Catherine could react, Charles stepped forward and snatched the baby from her arms. "No, father, give me back my child," Catherine screamed, her voice filled with desperation and terror. David tried to intervene, but one of Charles's men restrained him. "Charles, this is inhumane. You can't separate them like this," protested Richard, his voice trembling with anger. Charles looked at him coldly. "This is best for everyone. This child will be given to a family who can properly care for him," he declared, showing no emotion. With a broken heart, Catherine watched helplessly as her baby was taken away from her. Her screams and pleas echoed in the clearing, but Charles didn't stop. David, desperate, struggled to break free, but it was in vain. The baby, unaware of the chaos around him, cried weakly as he was carried away. "I promise you, Catherine, we'll find a way to be together," David shouted, his voice choked with anguish as he was taken back to the village. Catherine, her soul shattered, collapsed into her father's arms. Catherine remained in the forest clearing, feeling the emptiness in her arms where minutes before she had held her child. Her heart, broken into 1,000 pieces, couldn't accept the reality of the separation. Richard held her tightly, trying to provide a comfort he himself could barely feel. "Daughter, we must be strong," he murmured, though his voice trembled with the same desperation Catherine felt. Back in the village, David was taken home under Charles's strict watch. His father, unyielding, showed no sign of remorse for what he had done. "This is what's best for you, David," Charles said coldly. "One day you'll understand that my decisions were necessary for your future." But David couldn't accept those words. Every day without Catherine and their child was torment. His nights were filled with dreams where the three of them were together, and upon waking, the harsh reality hit him hard. Despite the constant vigilance, David and Catherine found ways to stay in contact. Through secret letters and brief encounters, they kept the flame of their love alive and the hope of one day reuniting their family. "No matter how much time passes, Catherine," David wrote in one of his letters, I promise that one day we will be together with our son. This promise is what keeps me strong." David's words were a balm to Catherine's tormented soul. Each letter she received was a reminder that she was not alone in her pain and that the love they shared was as strong as ever. With her father's support, Catherine began to devise a plan for the future. She knew that the only way to achieve their goal was to be patient and wait for the right moment. Time passed slowly, but finally, the day Catherine turned 18 arrived. Despite fierce opposition from both families, Catherine and David decided to get married. The ceremony was simple and emotional, with only a few close friends present. In Catherine and David's eyes shone the determination to start a new life together. After the wedding, the young couple moved to a distant city, seeking a fresh start far from the shadows of their past. There, they built a life filled with love and hope. They had 2 more children, and although these brought them much happiness, the void left by their first child never disappeared. Catherine and David's life in the new city was filled with happy moments and renewed hopes. Their 2 children, full of life and joy, reminded them daily of the blessings they had. However, the void left by their first child never vanished. Every corner of their new home, no matter how welcoming, couldn't fill that gap in their hearts. Catherine was especially vulnerable to the shadow of the past. Each night, dreams of her lost child visited her, painting vivid scenes of a child growing up alone, desperately seeking his mother. The dreams were so real that sometimes she woke up with tears in her eyes and a deep pain in her chest. "David," she murmured in the darkness, her voice broken. "I see him every night. He's growing up without us, alone and scared. I can't bear it." David, always the pillar of strength, would sit beside her and embrace her tenderly. "We'll find him, Catherine. No matter how long it takes, we won't stop searching." His words were sincere, but even he felt the weight of uncertainty and despair. During the day, Catherine tried to keep busy, taking care of their other children and keeping the house in order. However, every little detail reminded her of their lost child. A melody on the radio, a toy left on the floor, even the sound of the wind through the trees, all evoked memories of the past. The search for their son never ceased. Catherine and David followed every lead, no matter how remote. They traveled to different towns and cities, spoke to strangers, reviewed old records, and contacted organizations that might help them. Each time a lead faded, the frustration and pain grew, but they never gave up. Time passed slowly, like a tranquil but relentless river, carrying with it the years of searching and hope. Catherine, now 42 years old, had learned to live with uncertainty, although she never stopped dreaming about her lost son. Her nights were filled with blurred images and feelings of longing. But one night in particular, everything changed. That night, Catherine had a dream that left her unsettled. In the dream, she was on a dark road, illuminated only by the headlights of passing cars. Suddenly, she saw an accident between a car and a motorcycle. The motorcyclist, a young man with a familiar face, lay injured on the ground. The scene was so vivid and real that Catherine woke up with a start, her heart pounding. "David," she whispered, waking her husband. "I had a strange dream, so real it felt like a premonition. There was an accident, and the young man. I think it was our son." David, still groggy, looked at her with concern. "Catherine, dreams can be deceptive. But if you feel there's something more, we must pay attention." Catherine nodded, unable to shake the sense of urgency the dream had left her with. Throughout the day, the image of the accident and the young man's face didn't fade from her mind. Every detail of the dream seemed like a warning, a sign she couldn't ignore. That afternoon, while driving home from work, Catherine was on a deserted road. The sun was beginning to set, bathing the landscape in warm tones of orange and pink. Suddenly, a loud, metallic sound shattered the serenity of the moment. Catherine saw in the distance a car that had collided with a motorcycle. Her heart stopped for a moment as she recognized the scene from her dream. Without a second thought, she pulled over and ran towards the accident site. The motorcyclist lay on the ground, injured and bleeding. As she approached, Catherine felt an overwhelming déjà vu. The young man's face was the same as she had seen in her dream, and a wave of emotions washed over her. "My God," she murmured, kneeling beside the young man. "Stay calm. I'll take you to the hospital. Everything will be all right." With the help of other witnesses to the accident, Catherine managed to get the young man into her car and drove to the nearest hospital. During the drive, she looked at the young man's face and couldn't help but feel an inexplicable connection. "Please, hold on. We're almost there," she said, trying to stay calm. Upon arriving at the hospital, the doctors immediately took over. Catherine, her heart in her throat, waited in the emergency room. Time seemed to stand still as the doctors worked frantically to save the young man. Catherine remained in the hospital waiting room, her thoughts intertwined with the image of the injured young man. The cold lights and constant murmur of the medical staff heightened her anxiety. Every second stretched interminably, filling the air with palpable tension. A doctor finally emerged from the emergency room and approached her with a serious expression. "The young man has lost a lot of blood. His blood type is very rare, and our supplies are exhausted. We need an urgent transfusion. Do you know anyone with the same blood type?" Catherine felt a knot in her stomach. "I have a rare blood type," she responded, her voice trembling. "Could I donate?" The doctor looked at her with a mix of relief and concern. "We need to run some tests first, but if it matches, your donation could save his life." They quickly took her for the necessary tests. Catherine couldn't help but feel a connection to the young man, although she didn't understand why. The tests confirmed that her blood was compatible, and without hesitation she offered to donate. As she lay on the stretcher, watching her blood flow into the donation bag, her mind filled with memories of her lost son. Could it be? She thought, not daring to finish the idea. Once the transfusion was over, Catherine returned to the waiting room, her body weak, but her spirit strong. Several hours passed before the doctor returned with news. "The transfusion was successful," the doctor reported. "The young man is stable, but he needs to rest. You can see him briefly if you wish." Catherine nodded, feeling a mix of relief and nervousness. She entered the room and approached the young man's bed where he lay sleeping. She stood there, observing his face, searching for answers in every line and feature. There was something undeniably familiar about him. When the young man finally opened his eyes, Catherine felt her heart race. "Hello," she said softly. "How are you feeling?" The young man looked at her with tired but alert eyes. "Better, thank you. What happened?" "You had an accident. You were badly injured and needed a blood transfusion. Fortunately, I was able to donate," Catherine explained, trying to remain calm. The young man slowly nodded, processing the information. "Thank you. My name is Cameron, by the way." Catherine stared at the young man, her heart pounding at the possibility that her intuition was correct. "Cameron," she repeated, trying to stay calm as emotions overwhelmed her. "There is something I need to ask you." Cameron looked at her with curiosity and a hint of distrust. "What is it you need to know?" "Many years ago, I lost my son. We never stopped looking for him, and when I saw you today, I felt an inexplicable connection." Catherine explained, her voice trembling slightly. "I know it sounds strange, but I would like to do a DNA test to see if you are my son." Cameron blinked, surprised by the request. "A DNA test?" "I don't know what to say." "It's an unusual request." "I know, and I understand if you feel uncomfortable," Catherine said, trying to calm the situation. "But this feeling in my heart is too strong to ignore. Please, just give me a chance to know the truth." The young man remained silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. If taking this test gives you peace of mind, I'll do it. After all, you saved my life." Catherine smiled, relieved and grateful. "Thank you, Cameron. You don't know how much this means to me." Arrangements for the DNA test were made quickly, and while they waited for the results, Cameron began to share his story. "I was adopted when I was very young," he said, recalling the details of his life clearly. "My adoptive parents were always very loving, but they never hid the fact that they weren't my biological parents." Catherine listened intently, each of Cameron's words reaffirming her conviction. "Do you know anything about your biological family?" she asked, hoping to find some detail that would confirm her suspicions. Cameron shook his head. "No, I never knew anything about them. My adoptive parents said they found me in an orphanage, and that's all I know." Days passed in a mix of hope and nervousness. Catherine and David waited anxiously for the results, while Cameron tried to process the possibility of discovering his true origins. Finally, the day came when the laboratory called with the results. Catherine and David sat in the small hospital waiting room, their hands tightly clasped. Cameron joined them, feeling the tension in the air. A doctor entered with an envelope in his hand, his expression serious but neutral. "I have the results of the DNA test," the doctor announced. "We confirm that Cameron is indeed your biological son." The doctor's words resonated in the small waiting room, filling the air with a mix of relief, disbelief, and joy. Catherine burst into tears, her tears flowing freely as she hugged Cameron. "My son, I finally found you," she sobbed, holding him tightly. Cameron, still in shock, felt a wave of emotions upon hearing the news. "Is it true? Am I really your son?" "Yes, Cameron, you are our son," David replied, his voice filled with emotion as he joined the embrace. "We have been looking for you our whole lives." The reunion was a whirlwind of tears, laughter, and words of love. For Cameron, the news was overwhelming, but it also brought a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. "I always felt something was missing in my life," Cameron admitted, looking at his parents with eyes full of gratitude. "Now I understand why." In the following days, the family worked to catch up and share their lives. Catherine and David told Cameron about the years of searching and hope, while he shared details of his life with his adoptive parents. There was much to tell and many emotions to process. Finally, the moment arrived for Cameron to meet his younger siblings. The excitement in the air was palpable as they gathered in the family living room. Catherine and David watched with pride as their children met for the first time. "Cameron, these are your siblings, Lily and Matthew," introduced Catherine, smiling through her tears. Lily and Matthew looked at Cameron with a mix of curiosity and excitement. "Hello, I'm Lily," she said, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Matthew, more shy, also extended his hand. "Hi, Cameron. It's great to finally have you here." Cameron smiled, feeling a warmth he had never known before. "Hello, Lily." "Hello, Matthew. It's an honor to be part of this family." As time passed, the siblings began to share stories, photos, and memories. They talked about their interests, hobbies, and dreams, creating new bonds that grew stronger with each conversation. The house was filled with laughter and lively discussions, and the sense of family unity grew with each passing day. The family also dedicated themselves to creating new memories together. They organized picnics in the park, family dinners, and game nights. Each activity became an opportunity to strengthen their bonds and enjoy each other's company. "Let's take a family photo," David suggested one day, pulling out an old camera. "This is a moment we need to remember." Everyone gathered in the garden, smiling for the camera as David adjusted the timer. 1, 2, 3. "Smile," he said, running to join the group just in time. The camera captured a moment of pure happiness, an image that symbolized the love and unity they now shared. One sunny day, while the family enjoyed breakfast in the garden, Catherine proposed an idea that had been on her mind. "What do you think about visiting the town where it all began?" She looking at David and their children. David nodded thoughtfully. "It's a good idea. It's time to face the past and find peace with what we experienced there." Cameron, Lily, and Matthew listened attentively, feeling the importance of the proposal. "Yes, I'd love to learn more about where we come from," Cameron said with a supportive smile. The decision was unanimous. The family packed their things and prepared for the trip to the small town where their story of love, tragedy, and finally, their rebirth began. The journey to the town was filled with memories, each curve and each landscape evoking images of the past. Upon arriving in the town, a mix of emotions overwhelmed Catherine and David. The cobblestone streets, the picturesque houses, and the fresh country air reminded them of happy times as well as difficult moments. The children observed everything with curiosity, trying to imagine their parents' lives before they were born. The first stop was at the house of Richard, Catherine's father. Seeing his daughter and her family, Richard couldn't contain his tears of joy. "Catherine, David, what a joy to see you all," he exclaimed, hugging them tightly. "Dad, we've come to remember and heal," said Catherine, feeling a deep connection to her childhood home. The family spent the day touring the village, visiting places that held their most cherished memories. Every corner, every tree, and every alley had a story to tell. As they walked, they encountered old neighbors and friends who welcomed them with warmth and affection. "It feels like time has stood still here," David commented, observing the familiar landscape. "But we have changed so much." Cameron, Lily, and Matthew listened attentively to their parents' stories, gaining a deeper understanding and appreciation for all they had experienced. The visit to the village would not be complete without facing the most painful part of the past. David knew he had to visit his father, Charles, who now lived alone, in a small house on the edge of the village. With a mix of nervousness and determination, David headed to his father's house, accompanied by Catherine and Cameron. Upon arrival, they found Charles sitting on the porch, his body frail and his face marked by years and loneliness. Seeing his son, Charles struggled to stand. "David, Catherine," he said with a trembling voice, "I never thought I would see you again. "Father, we've come to talk," David said, maintaining his composure. "It's time to resolve the things that were left unresolved." The conversation that followed was tense and filled with emotion. Charles, though weak, maintained his pride, but with time and the persistence of David and Catherine, he began to open up. "I know I made many mistakes," Charles admitted, his voice breaking. "I thought I was protecting you, David, but I only caused you pain. I am so sorry for what I did." Catherine, with a compassionate look, spoke softly. "We all make mistakes, Charles. What's important is to learn from them and find a way to move forward." Cameron observed the interaction, feeling the weight of the words and the significance of the moment. The tension in the air began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of understanding and forgiveness. After many tears and heartfelt words, the moment of reconciliation finally arrived. David embraced his father, feeling a deep relief. "I forgive you, Father," he said firmly. "It's time to leave the past behind and start anew." Charles, with tears in his eyes, returned the embrace. "Thank you, son. I never thought this day would come." The family left Charles's house with a sense of peace and relief. The path to reconciliation had not been easy, but it was necessary to heal and move forward. In the following days, the family continued exploring the village, creating new memories while connecting with the past. They organized gatherings with friends and relatives, sharing stories and laughter, and strengthening the bonds that united them. One day, while they were all gathered in the village square, Catherine addressed her family with a smile. "This place holds so many memories, so much pain, and so much happiness," she said. "But the most important thing is that we are here together, facing the past and building our future." David nodded, looking at his children with pride. "We have been through so much, but it has all been worth it. We are stronger and more united than ever." Cameron, Lily, and Matthew nodded, feeling the truth in their parents' words. "We are a family," Cameron said, smiling. "And together we can overcome anything." The family, finally reunited and at peace with their past, returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. They knew the future would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities to grow and love each other. With love, hope, and unity, they faced the future with confidence, knowing they would always be together. The family returned home with a renewed determination, eager to build a life filled with love and understanding. Catherine and David decided it was time to fully enjoy their family, and they began planning activities that would strengthen their bonds. One of the first activities was a picnic in the park. Under the blue sky and surrounded by nature, they shared laughter, games, and deep conversations. Cameron, Lily, and Matthew played ball, while Catherine and David watched with smiles on their faces. "This is exactly what we needed," Catherine said, squeezing David's hand. "Moments like these remind us how fortunate we are." David nodded. "Every day together is a gift. I am so grateful that we are finally complete." Over time, they organized more family outings. They went hiking in the mountains, spent days at the beach, and visited museums and theme parks. Each trip was an opportunity to create new memories and strengthen family ties. During one of these outings, while walking along a forest trail, Cameron stopped and looked around. "I can't believe how much I've learned from you in such a short time. I never thought I would have such a wonderful family." Lily, always the optimist, smiled. "We are happy to have you with us, Cameron. You are a great addition to our family." Matthew, usually more reserved, also expressed his feelings. "Yes, Cameron. You have taught us a lot about perseverance and hope. Cameron felt a wave of gratitude. Thank you, guys. You have also taught me a lot. You have shown me what true family love means. Catherine and David watched with pride as their children connected and grew together. They knew these moments were crucial for strengthening the bonds that had been forged through adversity. In addition to family outings, they also organized special dinners at home. Every evening the dining table was filled with laughter and lively conversations. They shared stories of the day, discussed their dreams and plans for the future, and enjoyed each other's company. Dinner is the perfect time to reconnect, Catherine said one evening while serving the meal. It's an opportunity to ensure everyone feels heard and valued. David agreed. And it's also an opportunity to share our hopes and dreams. Cameron, Lily, and Matthew listened attentively, feeling the warmth and love emanating from their parents. They knew that no matter what happened, they would always have the unconditional support and love of their family. Cameron, in particular, found a deep connection with his parents and siblings. Although he had lived a different life before finding them, he now felt completely integrated into his new family. Catherine and David supported him every step of the way, helping him find his place and purpose. I am grateful for every day I spend with you, Cameron said one afternoon while walking with David. You have given me more than I could have ever imagined. David smiled and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. And you have given us the opportunity to be a complete family. Never forget how important you are to us. The family also dedicated time to talking about the future. They knew that while the present was happy, there would always be challenges ahead. Together, they discussed their plans and goals, ensuring that everyone had a role in building their future. I want to continue studying engineering, Cameron said with determination. It has always been my dream, and now I want to make it a reality. We will support you in everything you need, David responded, proud of his son's determination. Lily also shared her dreams. I want to be a doctor. I love helping people, and I believe it's my calling. Matthew, though younger, also had his clear goals. I want to be an architect. I have always been fascinated by designing buildings. Catherine and David exchanged a look of pride and love. We are here to support you every step of the way, Catherine said, taking David's hand. We are a family, and together we can achieve anything. The family's support and love were palpable in every decision, in every plan. Each family member knew that no matter what happened, they would always have each other's unconditional backing. The family, finally reunited, moved forward with renewed determination. They knew that the future would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities to grow and love each other. With love, hope, and unity, they faced the future with confidence, knowing they would always be together. The story of Catherine and David is a touching journey of love, perseverance, and redemption. Through the relentless search for their lost son, the characters teach us the value of hope and the unbreakable strength of family love. Catherine, with her determination and unwavering faith, shows us that we should never give up in the face of adversity. David, on the other hand, represents support and understanding, always ready to fight alongside his wife. Cameron, the lost son, symbolizes resilience and the ability to find peace and belonging even after years of uncertainty. His integration into the family and the rebuilding of broken bonds highlight the importance of forgiveness and reconciliation. The journey of this family teaches us that although life can be filled with challenges and painful moments, love and unity can overcome any obstacle. The story underscores the importance of standing firm in our values and beliefs and fighting for what is truly important. The deep connection between the characters and their ability to heal and grow together offers a valuable lesson about the importance of family and the strength of unconditional love. If you find the characters' journeys inspiring, please like and comment to share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more uplifting stories that highlight the power of connection and human kindness. Thank you for watching.